Enough of that. Get to business.
Let's get to our topic of the day.
Yeah.
And our topic of the day is how to go from a tutorial to building a custom application. So you kind of have a plan and a model for this. We're gonna go over these 4 steps, but we want to go from. So my first question I have for you is, how do you what's the first step in getting out of tutorial hell, right? What's the first step of what do you, because we just keep doing tutorials and we just keep doing them and keep doing them. We buy tons of Udemy courses and
all the tutorials also are a lot of the same projects. A lot of times you're building the same to-do list or the same kind of thing over and over again. And so you never really branch out and build your own thing. Right. And so this comes from just building commercial software when people come to you and they say, hey, can you build X? And so what you have to do is figure out okay, how do we start building that? So let's say that we've been in a to-do list. We've written 8 to-do lists at this point.
Right.
Various features. We've written some good ones. We've written some bad ones. And you've learned from some of the best Udemy teachers on the planet. And now you need to build something else. What we're telling you is if you don't build something else, you'll never really graduate from someone showing you step by step versus okay, let me figure out how to build this on my own. So the first question we always ask, especially in the consulting world, and this is the same thing, treat yourself like the client. You're playing person says, build this. You're the client, you're the client. Right. So you're going to ask you, the developer, to build something. So treat yourself in that realm.
So this can work for building a project for somebody else, or if you're building a project for your portfolio, right? For yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for yourself, either way. And so first off, the number one question that most people don't do is they don't really ask what the app's supposed to do. They just jump right to the technology side. They leap over this part of it. And that's why we have scope creep. That's why projects fail. That's why, they never really ask the client, what is this supposed to do? And try to get that down to a very detailed level. So when you ask what's this app supposed to do, you need to go through, okay, what is this thing to do? So let's say we've been in a to-do list and now I come to you and I say, all right, build a recipe app, but I don't have a course for that. So what do I do?
Right.
All right. So you need to ask that, what does a recipe app do? And whether you're building a consulting project or you're building the biggest project on the planet, you probably could go out and look at some other apps and go, okay, this is similar to what needs to happen. But definitely for your portfolio, we could find a recipe app. We could find a recipe display. We could find one. What is it supposed to do? Then, and so you say, well, it displays recipes. Well, that sparks the next question. What is a recipe?
Right.
What are the components in a recipe? What are the things that we have to store and track? We have ingredients in a recipe, but what else do we have in a recipe? We also have steps, maybe the steps to do the preparation of it that uses the ingredients. And then probably, if you really think about it, we probably would want a picture of the finished product.
Right.
So now we've identified the data points that we want to collect for the app. And so that's called the model or the database or a thing like that. So now we can start modeling out what does a recipe look like. Then once you figure out what it has to do, you can say, what are my features that I'm gonna have to do? So now I know what I'm collecting. What's the features? Well, I want to add one. I want to view one, maybe delete one, maybe edit one, and so
I think we're familiar with that.
Yeah, exactly. So we want a CRUD part of this, with create, read, update, delete.
Yep.
And so those are the types of scenarios that we want to go into. And then we go on to the next step. So now we know what it's supposed to do, what it's supposed to track. We know roughly what the features are. I got a view feature or an update feature, a delete feature, and maybe a create feature. So I've written all that down on a piece of paper.
Right. So if this is your own app, you get to dictate this, right? You get to dictate what it's going to do.
Right.
Right. So if this is an app for somebody else, obviously they're telling you what it's going to do. Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. So the other thing that you could ask in this thing is that who's going to use it? Who's the audience? Who's going to use this? How many people are going to use this? And so if you say one person or if you say 1 million, that also dictates what you're going to do. So if I say, well, I'm going to let anyone in the world create recipes. Okay. That implies okay, I'm going to need some kind of login system to create recipes. And so that's another feature that you'll have to develop and build out as well. So you got to think beyond just the core app, but what are the ancillary systems that I'll need to make this actually work. If you build a portfolio and you don't care and like everyone uses the same list of recipes, you don't need a login system. But if you want them to create their own lists, then you'll need one. So,
okay.
All right.
Let's look at this real quick. It said, how do you treat features you want to add in the beginning but don't want to add in the beginning? Like linking the recipe, I guess. Features you want to add in the beginning.
Okay. Yeah.
I guess maybe like.
So
scope,
what is?
right?
Yeah. So he's talking about scope keep. He's saying like, I want to add in a grocery order app. I want to take this to a next feature out here, but what are the core features that I need? So that's tracking, creating a recipe. And then you could say phase 2, I would like to be able to integrate with an API that says create a shopping list and get, Amazon to deliver the food to me, or Sam's Club or whatever to deliver the food to me. So that would be a next phase. So what I would always think about in terms of getting this out is MVP, which is like minimum viable project. What is the bare minimum that would make this a recipe app that I could build that? Then come back
and then think about
and build the second phase of groceries and things like that. Because a lot of times people will jump to the grocery part of it.
Right,
because that's cooler or that's neater, and you don't even have a database yet, and it makes it hard to retrofit it back in. So
that's
what I would do there.
Okay, so that's step 1. Let's talk about step 2 then. What's your next part of this?
The next thing is, once I know what I'm going to build, is what does this look like? What does the visual representation look like? Now, if you're working with a client, you have to build a wireframe. If you put actual designs to this at this point, you'll get really, really bogged down.
And you're talking about a design in terms of like, if you put a color on a piece of paper, or you give them a mock-up of something, they will get hung up on the font, the color, you need it to look. You need it to look like a wireframe, is what you're saying, right?
Right. I think so. So it needs to show all the screens, the fields, the flow of this application without the actual CSS, HTML images implementation of it. And that's why I don't like sometimes like Figmas and those kind of things, because it goes from wireframe straight to this is exactly what this is going to look like. Now, some projects, that's okay. And you can get sign off with your client and those kind of things. But for you, doing it for yourself, let's make sure that we know what the views are, how it flows, because we're still in the logical phase of building out our UI and like, okay, I need a login page. So you remind yourself, okay, I got to build that system. And then when I log in, where do I go? What's the flow to that? And then I go to the home page. And then I say the home page, what do? I can view and search recipes. Oh, we didn't mention search when we did that. What it needs to do. Okay, go back to what it needs to do and say, all right, now I need to add a search feature. I want to be able to search for recipes.
Right.
And then you go through your and see how you can have an iterative approach from your wireframe back into your what does it need to do, and then you take out all the assumptions by like putting this on paper. But you don't need to spend the time building out a complete functional UI at this phase.
Right. So what's your physical like purpose? Like, what's your physical mechanism for doing this?
I've used Balsamic for this, but I can tell you, if you work in the industry, sometimes it's literally whiteboarded and there's some guy with his iPhone taking a picture of it. I mean, like it can be that basic, and so you have these pictures rolling around, and that's my wireframe. It can also be initially, if you're not good at Balsamic, you want to take the time, is you can pen and paper it, which I do that a lot too. And then maybe I'll transfer that to a wireframe if I'm on something larger. If I'm just wiring up a basic screen, I'll just like kind of draw it and okay, that's what it kind of is going to look like to make sure
kind of get a general idea of where stuff is and how it kind of flows through.
Yeah. But Balsamic can actually put a little more meat on it without it looking like a finished web page at this point.
Yes. Yeah.
And you also have some interactivity where you can click through the buttons and see the next page that's supposed to come up. So there's a lot of things that you can do to build out flows with it.
Yep.
Which makes it really good.
I think that's important because when you're giving it to a client, they will definitely get hung up on those things, but also you yourself will get hung up on those things as well.
Yes.
You'll go down the rabbit hole of trying to find the perfect image for your homepage. It's like, it doesn't matter right now. It doesn't matter. That has nothing to do with functionality, but you're going to spend an hour on Shutterstock trying to choose something because that's kind of but if you get outside of that and just use a wireframe, it makes that part negligible. Just put a square and a cross through it, and there's an image. That's where that's going to go.
There's some kind of image there, and I'll tackle that out later. I need to get my flow down, the number of views I'm building, what do those views do, and then make sure that my assumptions and what I'm trying to build plays out into the wireframe. So now you have what am I building, and then how does it function, and you've built two things now.
Right, so you're taking those what's it supposed to do's, and you're basically running those through your wireframe to make sure that those two things kind of match up.
Yeah. And it should work.
Cool. A lot of people in chat saying they also use pen and papers. That's good.
Okay, yeah, pen and paper is fine, but you can, if you're Figma, you can do that too. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, man. I'm not kidding. It got to the Google Doc for the planning phase. Exactly. That's what happened.
There you go.
100%.
Exactly. And Mike says, many a tree using paper and pencil. Yep, definitely.
Yep.
Richard asks, what about flowcharts? Have you used flowcharts in this stage?
I don't use them a whole lot, but you could if that's how you want to do it. You would definitely do that in your wireframe. What I'm doing with my wireframe is actually building how do we flow through the system. And now if you need a more complex data flow or things like that, decisioning, you got a really complex kind of business process you're planning out, you might need a flow chart. I think that's good at this point because especially if you're working for a client, you need to have an understanding of like, is this how this works? Is this what it's supposed to be doing? To make sure everyone agrees on that. So when they come up and change it, you can ask for more money.
Right. Well, what happens is when you deliver it and you both had a different understanding of what was supposed to happen, then now you're in trouble.
Right.
They were like, oh, I thought when I was going to click that button, I was going to go here and it was going to do this. And you're like, well, no, my understanding was it was going to do this. And then now you missed out.
We had a famous client that purposely hid stuff from us during a project build out. And he famously would always say, what you needed to know was, and he knew it the whole time. And, just like, and we said here at the Cortex, we always made the joke, what you need to know, so like he would do it on purpose because he didn't like the fact that we were coming in building it and his team wasn't. So he just kind of, we still built it though. So
you still got around it with what you should have known.
Yeah, that happened to us once. Then we figured out like, okay, he's not telling us everything. We go somewhere else. So.
Okay, there you go.
What you needed to know. That's what he would always start every sentence with. You could have told us that,
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so step 3 in our 4-step process here. Yeah. And step 3 is something you say pseudocode.
Yeah, pseudocode at this point. So a lot of times you need a pseudocode, and this could be super rough pseudocode, like, depending on, you probably already have a good idea of like what we're going to build this with, MVC, Java, React or whatever. And then you need to at least plan out like sort of the modules so we can start planning out like the things that I need to code. And so you don't have to know exactly how this works at this point. You just need to know that I need to do, these are my steps. And then inside of my steps, I may have different modules and things that I've got to do. Now, if you're using like an MVC kind of pattern, a lot of this comes out in the pattern. It's already built out in model view controllers, so you have steps to go through. But if you're using other things, you got to really sit down and think about like, here's the modules I got to build. Here's what it roughly needs to do. First, do this. Second, do this. Third, do this. Fourth, do this. And you're just writing down your steps in there. This could be in a code editor with comments. While you're.
That's what I was going to ask. Like, where do you do this? Like, okay, so you could put this straight into like in VS Code or Visual Studio or whatever, and just comment. Okay.
Right. And so we're just, at this point, we know that what our steps are, so that when we are coding, we know kind of what's coming down the pipe to some degree, and then so we don't like work ourselves into problems where we got some rework or whatever.
Okay, I think this is great too because this means you're working on smaller problems too, right?
Yeah.
Because you're taking like this one thing, you're like, oh, I've got to solve this one little thing where this button does this one thing, and it's like, oh, that's the problem you're solving. That's the part that you're writing for. It makes that bigger problem broken down into smaller problems, which just becomes easier to code up. It feels less monolithic, right? It feels like less of a big thing to do and just solving a bunch of smaller problems.
And be fair, this pseudocode project could be as you enter in each phase too. You may not want to pseudocode the entire thing at first, but you're like, the first thing that I do, I'm building the login system for this recipe app. I'm going to pseudocode that before I start coding. So I need to know like where I'm going, especially if you don't have a component that you're bringing in, like a ASP, like auth or an auth 0 type thing. And you've got to build all of this from scratch. You need to know kind of where you're going and what you're going to do. And that will probably fall apart when you start coding, but at least you've thought through the problems at that point, the things you're going to run into.
Okay. Last step then. Let me
get coding.
Coding.
Yeah. So that's the other thing too, is a lot of people plan and plan and plan, and they never get to this phase either. There's a lot of people that jump right to this phase, and it's a disaster.
This is like step number one. Yeah. It's just open up your idea, and you're like, right, first line, here we go. Like, what am I building again?
If you've ever been on a consulting project at a bank, they're in that step 1 and 2 phase for like 10 years. And you're like, dude, can we just get building this thing? So eventually you do have to get to the coding phase where you're actually building out all of the components that you identified, and then stick to your MVP. Don't allow yourself to have scope creep. Don't allow your client to have scope creep. Say, we'll get to that. That's going to be a second phase. If you push things that are scope creep into another phase, I'm telling you as a consultant, it's a lot easier to charge for it. So that's phase 2. We're only being paid for phase 1 at this point. Like we're not being paid for it. And so you're pushing everything into phase 2 that you can, that's not in the initial scope that you agreed upon. Now, if it's yourself, don't allow yourself to have scope creep either.
Right.
Focus on the core functionality. So like here at Coder Founder, when we're building the bug tracker, the students will get into building it and they'll think of something and they'll want to do that. And then they'll go off on that rabbit trail and do it. And they're like, can you save a ticket yet? And they're like, no, but I've got an event notification system to die for. I'm like, yeah, but there's nothing to notify on. We don't have the ticket doesn't work. The projects don't work. So focus on MVP first, and then identify your phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 type scenarios, and then add it back in later.
And that's something you could have done up front too, right? In the what's supposed to do is like.
Yeah.
Is spec that out too. Be like, here's my need to haves and here's my nice to haves. So here's my core application, and then my MVP product, and then here's my things that I maybe want to add to it in the future. So if you do need to kind of design initially for those future things, you can think about those early on too. Maybe.
Yeah. And I've been in plenty of meetings we're designing a thing on the board, and then there's a lot of those creative devs in there, and they start throwing in features. And you as the project manager have to go, we ain't doing that. Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. Nope. We're not doing that. And they can argue for those features in phase 1, but in general, you have to get an idea of what is the MVP?
You've got to come back to the business problem, right?
Yeah.
What is the minimum product I can deliver? Yep.
Yeah. Because if we can't build a store recipe app, why in the heck would we integrate with a grocery app at this point? Because we may not have ingredients to be able to send to it, so it won't never work. Right. So if we get the MVP first, and then to get the phases, I think you'll work great. And so if you looked at something like our recipe app, that would mean I would need to create a recipe and store and probably edit a recipe, probably delete them, and maybe some kind of functionality to look them up, like a search or something like that.
Yeah.
That's it. That's MVP 1. And so if you built that out and put that in your projects in your portfolio, that's kind of cool. Yep. And then you could come back in phase 2 and say, you know what? I would like multiple people to create their own unique lists. And then you have to implement an auth system and an authorization system on top of that. Yep. And now when someone logs in, it's Kevin's recipes. When I log in, it's Bobby's recipes, those kind of things. And then you could say, okay,
I like that
grocery list. Yeah, let's go. Now that we have all this stuff, and it's like, okay, where does that fit into what I already have? And say, okay, now click a button, go send it off to Sam's Club, and Sam's Club brings those groceries to my house. Boom. Then you got a recipe app.
Right.
So, and it's not a to-do list, and you built it on your own.
Right, exactly. You've turned something that everybody has on their portfolio to having something that is based on something that everybody has, but is very unique.
It's new. It's unique. It hasn't been seen before. It hasn't been done.
Yep. But it's essentially a similar app.
Yeah.
And that's the same with anything. That's the same with any of these things. Once you've built we'll say just in general, once you've once you've learned something in a tutorial, make sure that you go and concretely apply that knowledge. Like go and build the thing as it is, go and then think about like a similar version of it and build that as well. That's the only way you're really going to kind of really understand it versus just following along. And we're saying this from a perspective of we make tutorials, right? Like we're not saying we're not saying like you don't need tutorials, because you do, but we're also saying don't just do the tutorial. Like that's
right. Over and over again, and because no one's building a to-do list in the enterprise. But if you look at a recipe list, so my ingredients, you know what my ingredients are? That's a to-do list of just different ingredients, you know. And then I have my steps. Okay, the steps to the recipe. That's the, you know, pinch of salt and whisk until, you know, whatever, you know, those are my steps. Another to-do list. Now I've got to figure out how do I link those two things together to make a recipe. And maybe that's what you don't know how to do. There you have your Google targets at that point. So, all right, so how do I make two lists that are joined together? So those two models, how do they join? How does that work? And so maybe you can just figure out how to do that and Google that part of it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, definitely.
You know, I want to store it in a database. Yeah.
Exactly. Ridge Raider said he turned his blog project into a recipe app with
100%.
With a great name, by the way. Ridge Raider.
Yeah. Fridge Raider. I love it. Oh man.
That's a good
awesome
name. That is a great name. That's
Fridge Raider.
Like, well done. You just get an award for the name. Like, I like it.
Yep.
It fits on so many levels.
Yeah,
I love that a lot. Really, really good. Oh, that's good stuff. Okay.
So now you can win those cooking shows with your app. They'll say, given these 6 ingredients, what could you make?
Exactly. And we joke about like kind of making a recipe app. We don't joke about it, but we'd say about making a recipe app. But if you've ever used like a recipe app or looked up a recipe online, I don't know what the latest thing is with websites and recipes. There's this weird like the need for somebody to attach an article to a recipe is like, it must be something to do with search. It must be something to do with SEO. Right, because like you look up like the best cookie recipe or something, and it's like this page, and it's like it's really, really, really long, and there's this article at the beginning of it, and the recipe's buried at the bottom of it, and I have no idea where that comes from. Like it's like this weird. I don't know what it is. So there's definitely room in that space if anybody wants to make a really cool recipe site. I'm sure there's plenty of space out there for you to do so.
Yeah. Reverse recipe. This is what's in my fridge. What can I make?
Yes, I love that idea. Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't be making anything in a minute. My fridge is empty. I need to go to the store. So Kieran says they have an app idea. I know what I want to build, but not sure what tech I would need for certain parts of it. I don't think anybody's done it before. Not sure if I can Google for examples.
So you're not going to use. Yeah, well, you can build anything with anything. So first off, is it a website? Is it a mobile site? Is it a desktop app? That's kind of your 3 choices there at this point. Maybe it's an embedded something on something else, but let's assume you're in that 3 choice. You pick a stack from there to build it with, and what do you know how to code with at this point? You know,
that's the important thing. Like, what do you know?
What do you know?
Yep.
You know, so, and so if you say app idea, maybe he's thinking about mobile. And so like, you know, all right, so you got 2 choices to build it native and mobile. You can go Android Studio, those kind of routes. You can go Objective-C, or you can build a cross-platform React Native, Iconic, you know, Xamarin, .NET MAUI. Those are the Flutter. Those are the things that you can use to do it with. And so inside that tech, you're going to be able to build whatever you've thought of for sure. So you use the right tech for the right platform. Then don't think of like, I'm building X and then try to Google, how do I build a recipe app? Because you probably won't find that.
Yeah,
you know,
that's why you can't find it, I think.
Yeah, so you got to back it up and go, what am I trying to do? And that's what you're Googling, because code is going to be abstract from the idea. So you're not going to be able to Google the idea, especially if you're saying no one's done it before. You need to Google the concept of the things that you're trying to do, the problems, the tech you're facing, the problems you're facing from a technological standpoint. How do I save items to a database? Could be something to do. You don't know how to do that, all right? And I'm using, you know, MVC. How do I save items to a database? It would show you. Or if I'm using React Native, how do I save items to a database using Node and MySQL? Those kind of things. So,
and I'm guessing
that's why we build. That's why we have these stacks, these MERN stacks, and like ASP.NET stack, and then because they describe all of the technologies you need to do to build a full stack web app.
And I think you'll also find too that like some very popular sites and apps were initially built on one platform and then switched to another. I think Facebook was built on something else. I know Dig back in the day was built on something else, and that blew up, and they changed it and they rewrote everything. So don't be afraid of like picking something that's for the life of it either. Like just
you can always rewrite it.
Build it.
Yeah, just build it.
Just build it. And Shane's going to give you his personal opinion on it too. Just send him a message.
Tell me your idea. I'll tell you what tech to use.
Just email him your business plan, and he'll take care of that for you.
Yeah.
But also, I would also say, just to go back to the one point there, you say that you don't think it's something that anybody else has done. So I would also say, question yourself over that too.
Yep.
If you don't think anybody's done it, there is a reason that somebody hasn't done it, and it's not because they didn't think of it. Trust me.
Right.
It's not because they didn't think of it. There's some other reason. So really go back and look at like why. And if the ultimate answer is because it's too complicated, that's going to be a problem. But that's probably not the answer. Just saying.
The answer is nobody wants to do it on an app.
Right. There's some reason they're not. Somebody hasn't done it. Because to this point, I'm not saying everything's been done, but almost everything's been done.
It's been done.
in one way or another.
One way or another, it's been done.
Yep. Okay. Let's see. Adam wants to know. He said, do you think one day all of these businesses will go from Java to C#?
I think if they want to, they can. I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't think all the businesses. I just think that, it's possible. But Java isn't dead. You can still use it. I just think that C# is way more forward-thinking than Java is right now. As far as the updates are coming and the tooling and all that kind of stuff, way more forward-thinking than the current Java platform. Does that mean Oracle will pick up their game and start enhancing it? I don't know what they're going to do with it. So, but does that mean that I have to change all my Java code to C#? No, you don't have to. You can keep using it as it is.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think that's what it was. PHP originally. Right? I don't know. What is it now?
I don't know.
I don't know. But yeah, I think it was PHP. Yeah.
Probably JavaScript and React. I would imagine.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be though. I mean, it doesn't have to.
My guess is there's still a bunch of PHP hanging out there. It would not be right.
Yep.
This is a comment from earlier, but N17 Hero says that's why you get them to sign off on design documents that say this is exactly what you are getting.
Yeah, and even then they'll argue with you.
Right. Even if you present them an exact design document, because it's not always that, right? It's always like functionality or something else, or they're going to say like, I thought
that feature includes this. No, it doesn't. Yes, it does. That's what I meant when I said that feature. That's what I meant.
Exactly. Oh, that color you used there, though. I thought that was just a placeholder. I thought you were going to change that for something else. Like, it's never truly settled until it's settled, right? Until it's handed over and you've both agreed. Salah wants to know why you recommend C# on top of Node or PHP or Java for web development. I mean, is C# really popular in web development?
Yeah, it is. That's why we recommend it. It's really popular. So if you look at Stack Overflow, most popular technologies, okay? I don't know why it's broken out this way, but when they do it, they break it out by ASP.NET Core and ASP.NET. There's two different versions of it, but they don't break out Java by versions or Node by versions or React by versions. They group all those together. If you group the two ASP.NET technologies together, that's number 3 on the framework list.
Yep.
And it is highly popular. That's why we do it. That's why we do it. We can find a job doing it. So, and then I read articles every day. React's dead. They don't like it anymore.
Yeah, clearly.
So use Fresh and there's another one that came out last week. So ASP.NET Core and ASP, if you put them together, put it on top of that list. I don't know why they're broken out by versions.
Yep.
So 18 plus, 15 plus 18 or whatever that is, 35. Yep. So it's really popular. I mean, and then it's super popular in enterprise for sure. And then what they're also not considering the ASP.NET is also web API. So like web API being how to build RESTful services. You tack that onto it. It's just on the back end. C# is a dominant player on the back end inside of web development for sure. So it doesn't mean you can't build it with anything else. PHP is mostly used in and around WordPress. So those numbers are skewed way above it. Or you would see like PHP devs making lots of money. When you go look at how much money those people make, it's down here. Why? Because they're managing WordPress sites. And so to me, those are two different segments of the market. They're both valuable. They're both, but we're talking about full stack development, building web applications, which you can do with PHP. Java, definitely. Swing, you can build all of those all day long, and people do. So you can use those as well. But Java's nowhere close now to the where C# is, in my opinion. So that's just me. But
is that chart?
What I would say is, you can look down there in the bottom. Down here. Yeah, way down there. It tells you they're not building enterprise apps, or they would make a lot more money. So it's just the way it is. Now C#, you'll say, well, it's in the middle. They don't make as much. Well, they do on the high end still, compared to everyone else. But there's a ton of them. I mean, like and so you're gonna have juniors.
There was 10,000 respondents that responded. C#.
Yes.
There was 7,000 for PHP. So
So there's just a lot more of them out there. That means there's a lot of companies using it, and that's why we teach it here. That's why we continue to teach it. Doesn't mean that Node doesn't have value. It does. A lot of people use it. We just don't teach it here. So that's why we recommend what we teach, because we feel like that's how we can get your job, is using that. But Node,
Java, by the way, in that survey also had 10,000 responses. So
a lot of people.
I mean, almost Java, literally 10. Wow, 10,725 for Java, 10,704 for C#. That's crazy.
Both of those are back-end languages that are used a lot in the enterprise, for sure. Yeah, so that's it. So just because I recommend it, I don't want you to think I'm invalidating your choice. I want everyone that can break into coding, because I think it's a great idea, and there's a lot of roads to get there. It's not just one road. Dino, yes.
0.1%. Dino barely got a mention on that Stack Overflow thing. I can tell you
exactly.
That. Its usage was way down. I don't even know. I mean, it was point something, wasn't it? It was less than 1% of like YouTube usage. It was really, really, really low. But it was.
If you can find it, we'll bring it up. Dino.
Haskell says off by 1 pixel. You need to change. It's 1 it's 1 pixel too low. You need that. Bump it up just one.
Yeah, and then usually you have clients looking at it on their device, and they don't realize that it doesn't look the same on every device, man. Like, I know.
Right.
I know you like your BlackBerry, but like,
like, this website's pixelated. What's wrong with it? Like, dude, you're looking at it on an iPhone 3.
Yeah, you have 260 pixels there. Yeah.
Like, trust me, it looks way better on my screen. Okay. Adam says, going to community college for coding, but nervous trying to get a job in it. Seems hard. What advice you got for Adam today?
So go to a community college is fine. Build some stuff. Learn anything you can. You have to build a portfolio of projects. So make sure that if you're not getting full-blown projects at your community college, that you're going to turn around and build those when you exit. And then show that portfolio as your primary tool for getting a job. And then not your resume. Your resume will have your community college on and your work history, but like your portfolio should be the dominant thing that you show around. So, and then work with recruiters. We talk about this a lot, how to do it. Is it hard work? Yes. Is it impossible? No. If you apply blindly to 600 jobs, you're going to have less success than most. Most people that find jobs are talking to the people that get them. That's why you work with a recruiter. Anyway, hope that helps, Adam.
Yep. I would also say, Adam, your a lot of community colleges, I don't know if the coding area is the same, but you get like an Associate of Applied Science.
Yeah.
So it generally means they do some like portfolio work or hands-on work or something. Like lean into that. Stuff. Make sure that you use their connections there. If they have like a an internship like connection that you can get. Go do that. Go do more hands-on stuff as well as building out your portfolio. And that should be, like Bobby said, that should be the goal of your community college. Not to learn how to code, but to build some things you can actually then turn into a job at the end of it. And if they're not, you got to do it on your own.
Or come to Coder Foundry.
Oh, I'll come to Coder Foundry. We've definitely had people who have associates, bachelors, even masters come to Coder Foundry. So
yeah.
Let's see. Gotta be cat. I wonder how many developers drink coffee over tea.
I'm a tea guy, and that's mainly because of Kevin. You know, Kevin showed me how to make proper tea, so like, kind of hooked on that now. I don't drink coffee at all.
Oh, you don't drink it at all?
I don't like it.
Okay.
I do like tea though.
I do like
me some tea.
I do like coffee, but I drink decaf these days. But I get really good decaf coffee delivered from online, from Trade Coffee. Not sponsored. But definitely if you want like good coffee, it's
if you want to though, we would take it.
Hey, if Trade Coffee wants to sponsor it, I'll totally take a sponsorship. But Trade Coffee, they deliver a bag like on a schedule, so it's like every 3 weeks. I get a new bag come in, and it's really, really good coffee. It's really, really good. It's decaf, and then I drink tea the rest of the day.
And in my experience, and just being around dev arenas, dev teams, and things like that, it's in the U.S. mostly coffee.
It is
most people drink coffee.
Yeah,
man.
I mean, we had a coffee machine that got hammered in the office. Like it was.
And to be fair, I don't know where you're from, but we're from the South here, so like tea is a different thing than what Kevin makes.
It's not a good thing. It's not a good thing. It's basically, if you're in the South, tea is basically a cup of warm sugar with some tea leaves. It was shown at one point, and then they backed it out real quick. There you go. So, you're right. Dunked twice, pulled out. Like, there's your tea. It's like, dude, it's sugar water. It's pure sugar.
Yeah. So like, they're two different drinks. They're not even the same category of what British tea versus.
I don't know how you can even call them the same thing. That's true. I don't know how they are the same thing. Why do they have the same name? I have no idea.
Right.
That's funny.
But Southern sweet tea, man. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. You're from the South.
Yeah. Oh, look. Drew got me hooked on Barry's tea. I actually did an exchange with Drew before. I exchanged some of that Barry's Irish tea for one of my English tea, which I'll normally drink like Tetley or PG Tips. I'm not looking like fancy tea. I'm not having like, I just have like regular common folk tea. And it's, so we traded one. So I have a box of Barry's downstairs that I have every so often. A little bit more red than the English stuff, but it's good. I like it.
Yeah. Inside joke, Drew used to work here, so I don't know who Snoop Dogg is, but apparently he came to Coder Foundry at one point.
And Drew got him hooked on tea, which you can buy all this stuff. If you're in the US, you can buy these teas on Amazon, by the way. Go try one. It's good. It's good for you, too. It's actually good. Okay, let's do one more. Xamarin, Maui, or Flutter?
Right now it's Maui for sure, or Flutter. So if you already have existing Xamarin products, it's obviously Xamarin. But if you're starting brand new today, it's Maui or Flutter.
Is there a way to change from Xamarin to Maui? Is that like a? Is there a path for that? There is a thing for that. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know how. I haven't tried it, so but
it is a thing.
Yeah, and then Maui is the new Xamarin. So a lot of it's the same, where we have like XAML on the front end to create our UIs. A lot of it's the same. It's just now that we can have new targets that we didn't have before. So if you're asking me, I'm gonna crank it out in Maui. That's what I'm gonna do. But there'll be a lot of other camps say I'm gonna rock it out in Flutter. But I think those are the two big ones right now, for sure.
Yep. And again, like which one should you use comes down to which one do you want to learn and which one do you want to build with. Like, do you do your research and
Kotlin,
make sure that it's employable?
Yeah, Kotlin or Java behind that. I think it's Kotlin or Dart behind Flutter. I'd have to go look and see what the actual language is.
And Ridge Raider, no, that's what I'm saying. It's too fancy for me, man. Anything with the Queen seal on it's just like too much. Some exceptions, but for tea, I just need the people's tea.
The people's tea, the common tea.
The people's tea. PG or Tetley for me. Sometimes builders, if you want a really strong cup. Conway says, did you guys ever mention a time on the Maui demo project? No.
Nah, we're working on .NET 6 now. We're in the final phases of that, and that'll come out soon. Almost done. So
Yep,
And then
I was actually editing more of that this morning.
Yeah, and I think after that, if we had to give a timeline, it'll be API Blazor. Then we would get to Maui.
Yep. Has Maui had it? Did it get a full release yet? I don't.
It's out.
Did it? Okay.
Yeah. So it's,
cool.
I haven't tried it yet. Yeah.
Yeah, N17 Hero, you know the stuff. It's
Yeah,
strong, right? It's strong tea, but it's good.
Yeah.
It's literally called builder's tea. Like it's because there's a thing. Okay, so if you don't, there's a cultural thing, right, in the UK where like as a builder, as a profession, you're known to drink a lot of tea. Okay, it's just a thing. You break every 5 minutes and drink tea. It's like it's a running gag, but it's also very, very true.
Right. Yeah.
If you've ever had a
coffee here,
contractor,
it's like coffee here.
It is, but if you've ever had a contractor in your house, like they will just want to keep drinking tea. It's like it's one of those things. I know that's a stereotype, but it's true. In my experience, it's just been the way it is. So they have a specific tea called builder's tea.
Yeah.
Slightly off tangent.
Have to try out some builder's tea.
I have some. I'll give you some.
Yeah.
Strong.
I like it. Yeah.
Just strong tasting. Okay, cool. We'll be back again next Thursday, as always.
All right.
With
we'll be back. And we'll get back in the class, teaching some CSS and HTML this week.
Nice.
So,
how's the class going? We got a new bunch of people. What if they're watching? If they're watching, you gotta get back to work.
Jacob was in here. So like he was in here. He was one of the students in there. So
okay.
So it should be good. But yeah, we're building out that. So we'll get back to work. Get back to coding.
Like it.
All right, see you guys next Thursday. And see you next week. Keep coding, guys.
We'll catch you guys later.